Hallelujah. Shalom, family. Greetings to the 12 tribes of Yisrael scattered abroad. In this video, we're going to discuss what's called the Last Supper or the Lord's Supper. And we're going to talk about what it is and what it is not, as we endeavor to return to the ancient pathways, to return to the customs of our ancient Israelite ancestors, and return to the Torah of Yahuwah. Yehuchanan chapter 6. And Yahusha said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that comes to me shall never hunger, and he that believes on me shall never thirst. But I say unto you, that you also have seen me, and believe not. All that the Father gives me shall come to me, and him that comes to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me. So again, we see that Yahusha came down from heaven. He is that messenger of Yahuwah. He is that angel of Yahuwah that spoke to Musha face to face. He is that being that ate and drank with Musha and the 70 elders. Because we understand that no man can see the Father and live. So Yahusha is that messenger. And of course he was sent by the Father. So if someone is sent, that means that they are a messenger. And this is the Father's will which has sent me, that all which he has given me I should lose nothing, but shall raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which sees the Son and believes on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So again, Yahusha makes it plain that he is a messenger. The words that he spoke were not his own, but he was sent for a purpose. And we have to address this idea of belief, because Hebrew thinking is concrete, Western thinking is abstract. So in Christianity and in Western philosophy, if you say that you believe something, it's just something that's in your mind. But when a Hebrew says that they believe something, it means that they actually put it into action, they obey it. So when he says in verse 40, everyone which sees the Son and believes on him, it's not talking about believe that he exists. It means that they actually obey his words, obey the laws, statutes, and commandments. Verse 46, I am the bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. So again, here he is predicting what he's going to do. The Yahudim therefore strove among themselves, saying, How can this man give us his flesh to eat? Then Yahusha said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. So of course, the Yahudim didn't really understand what he was speaking about. But what he was saying is, if you do not renew the covenant, you will have no life. If you do not renew the covenant, if you do not refresh the covenant, if you do not return to the covenant, you will be lost. Whoso eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me, and I in him. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eats me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eats of this bread shall live forever. So again, we understand the intent of Yahushua's words because we followed through the testimonies of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we know what happened on the night that he was betrayed. And we find out the actual meaning of the flesh and the blood. He's speaking about the bread and the wine, the elements of renewing the covenant. First Corinthians chapter 11, Shaul or Paul wrote, For I have received of the Master that which also I delivered unto you, that the Master Yahushua, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. The night he was betrayed was the night of the 14th day of Abib. So we understand that the Master's Supper or the Last Supper was not the Passover meal. Verse 24, And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup, and when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament. And remember that word testament is diatheke, which also means covenant. In my blood. This do you, as often as you drink it, in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Master's death till he come. Verse 27, Wherefore whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Master unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the Master. So what does he mean here? This is the renewed covenant, the refreshed covenant. Remember, at the first covenant, the people of Israel were presented with the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yahuwah. And he said that everything that you say we will do. And after they agreed to obey Yahuwah, the blood of the covenant was sprinkled on them. So again, here with the Master's Supper, the renewed covenant, or the New Testament, an Israelite taking part in this memorial must have the conviction of renewing the covenant. In other words, returning to Yahuwah and being obedient to all his laws, commandments, and statutes. Verse 28, Let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. So you have to check yourself. Are you willing to obey all the laws, commandments, and statutes? Because that's what you're saying when you take that cup. That's what you're saying when you eat that bread. You're saying, I am committing myself, I'm committing my life to total obedience to Yahuwah. 29. For he that eats and drinks unworthily eats and drinks damnation to himself, not discerning the Master's body. So if you're taking this as part of a Christian ritual, this is not the intent of the Master's Supper. The Master's Supper is for Israelites to return to Yahuwah and commit their lives to obeying Him, just the same as in with the first covenant. For this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged. But when we are judged, we are chastened of Yahuwah, that we should not be condemned with the world. So how do we judge ourselves? We judge ourselves according to the Torah. If we judge ourselves and conform ourselves to the laws and commandments of Yahuwah, then there will be no judgment against us when Yahuwah judges us. Ibrim, or Hebrews chapter 8. But now has he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant. Again, we see the Greek word diatheke, which was established upon better promises. So we see how the translators translate things. We see here in Hebrews that they translate the same Greek word that they translated before concerning the Master's Supper. There with the Master's Supper, they translated the word as testament, but here they translated it as covenant. So, testament is the covenant. The New Testament is the new covenant. We see that Shaul or Paul says that Yahusha is the mediator of a better covenant, which is established upon better promises. So that word better means stronger, more noble, more honorable. So he's the mediator of a stronger covenant, a more noble covenant. So let's go to Yeshayahu or Isaiah chapter 42. Yahuwah is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the Torah and make it honorable. So the new covenant, the New Testament, is the same laws, commandments, and statutes as the first covenant. The only difference is that he's writing it in the hearts of the Israelites. So we see that he promised that he was going to do what? He was going to magnify his Torah. He's not going to do away with the law. He's going to magnify it and make it honorable. This is the total opposite of Christian doctrine. Romans chapter 9. Who are Israelites, to whom pertains the adoption and the glory and the covenants, and the giving of the Torah, and the service of Elohim, and the promises. So when we look at what Shaul wrote in Romans, Shaul is also the author of Hebrews. So when he says in Hebrews that Yahusha is the mediator of a better covenant, and Shaul said that the covenants pertain to the Israelites. And we already saw that Yahuwah promised that he would make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. Not with foreigners, not with non-Israelites. He promised that he was going to make a new covenant with the nation of Israel. And also in Romans, Shaul says that the promises pertain to Israel. So when we read in Hebrews, which was established on better promises, the promises were made to Israel. So when we look at the Master's Supper is an invitation to the Israelites to return to the covenant, to become a part of the refreshed or renewed covenant, to agree to return to Yahuwah and become obedient to all his laws, commandments, and statutes, and have his Torah written upon our hearts. Ibrim, or Hebrews chapter 8. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he says, Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, when I make a new covenant with the house of Yisrael and with the house of Yehudah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, says Yahuwah. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah. I will put my Torah, or my laws, into their mind, and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them an El, and they shall be to me a people. So we see here that Shaul reveals that, again, both covenants were made with the house of Israel. He's quoting directly from the prophet. Nothing's changed between the two covenants. The only difference is that he says, I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts. That's the only difference. It's the same laws, it's the same commandments, it's the same statutes. So when we partake in the memorial of the Master's Supper, and remember the words of Yahusha, who said, this blood is the blood of the New Testament, or the New Covenant. When we partake of that, we are saying that we accept the covenant. We accept all the laws and commandments and statutes of Yahuwah, and we agree to be obedient. So we see that there was nothing wrong with the covenant, with the first covenant. The problem was, in verse 8, finding fault in them. In who? In our forefathers. Why? Because our forefathers didn't continue in the covenant. Even though they agreed to it, they fell away. The problem was not with the covenant. The problem is not with the laws of Yahuwah. The problem is with us. So we have to change ourselves. We have to change our hearts and become obedient to Yahuwah. Verse 11, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. In that he said, a new covenant, he has made the first old. Now that which decays and waxes old is ready to vanish away. So again, the new covenant has not been fulfilled yet. It will be fulfilled when Yahuwah establishes his kingdom on earth, when he establishes the nation of Israel as a kingdom again. As Shaul or Paul says, the first covenant decays and waxes old and is ready to vanish away. It has not vanished yet. It has not gone away yet. And this is after the death and resurrection of Yahusha that Shaul is writing this. The beginning is starting to vanish away because Israelites are returning back to the covenant. Israelites are having the Torah written within their hearts. So the first covenant is starting to vanish away and it's becoming refreshed. So again, like the moon, it goes through its phases, and towards the end of its phases, it decays, it waxes away, it starts to vanish. But after it vanishes, it returns, it is refreshed, it is renewed. There is a new moon. So it's just like the first covenant. As we return back to Yahuwah with all our hearts, the first covenant starts to wax away. And when we become totally committed to Yahuwah, the same laws, statutes, and commandments become refreshed in our hearts and minds. This is the meaning of the Last Supper, of the memorial of the Master Supper. It is a return back to the covenant, a refreshing of the covenant, a new covenant. It is not a different covenant, it's a refreshed covenant that Yahuwah is making with all the Israelites that repent. Hebrews chapter 10. For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remains no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moshe's Torah died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much sore punishment, suppose you, shall he be thought worthy, who has trodden under foot the son of Elohim, and has counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unset apart thing, and has done despite unto the Spirit of grace. So we see here that, as we saw before, that it's a better covenant, it's a stronger covenant. So his laws, his statutes, and his commandments are not done away. His laws, his commands, and statutes are eternal. His covenant is an everlasting covenant. The only difference is that with the new covenant, he is writing it in our minds and in our hearts. The same laws, statutes, and commandments. Hebrews chapter 12. And to Yahusha, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling, that speaks better things than that of Abel. Chapter 13. Now the Elohim of peace, that brought again from the dead our Master Yahusha, that great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the everlasting covenant. So again, the covenant is an everlasting covenant. So the first covenant and the new covenant are the same covenant. The only difference is that the new covenant is written in the minds and the hearts of the Israelites. Matthew chapter 10. These 12 Yahusha sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not in the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter you not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So in Hebrews chapter 13, we see that he calls Yahusha that great shepherd of the sheep. What sheep? The sheep of the house of Israel. Chapter 15. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So we see that the blood of the everlasting covenant was for the sheep, the Israelites. And as we read from the prophet, Yahuwah said that he would make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. And this is who Yahusha intended to take the memorial of the Last Supper, or the memorial of the Master's Supper, the renewed covenant. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click the like button and subscribe and be notified of future videos. Shalom, family.